Hello, good afternoon, and a very warm welcome to today's lunchtime reflection from St Peter Mancroft Church here in the heart of Norwich. There's lots of people busy in the church buying Christmas cards and so forth. Do please carry on with whatever it is you might be doing. My name's Gill Persicke, and I'm one of the licensed lay ministers in this church. And my subject today is Traitors. Has trust gone for good? Now, some of you, like me, may have been absolutely glued to that telly series, Traitors, recently. And even if you haven't been, you'll probably be aware that it has been going on. And it struck me that traitors, treachery, really is in keeping with the spirit of our times, as we're beginning to ask ourselves in so many arenas of life who or what it is we can possibly trust anymore. Now, I won't even try to explain to you the whole game of Traitors on telly. It's complicated and it's fascinating. It works a bit like an old-fashioned murder mystery set in a glorious Scottish castle. But what you do need to know is that the people in that castle are divided secretly into two groups. There's the faithful ones and there's the traitors. And the traitors have the power, surreptitiously, to murder their innocent colleagues. Now, all the participants interact with each other all day long. And the faithful ones are observing other people very carefully and trying desperately to work out who they can trust, whilst the traitors are telling an absolute pack of lies in order to gain the trust of their innocent friends. Psychologically, it is actually an absolutely fascinating watch. And perhaps it's caught the imagination of the nation so powerfully because it plays out for us safely on telly that dilemma we're all caught up in nowadays, the dilemma of trust. Who can we trust in society? Well, if we're lucky, we feel we can trust our families and our friends, a trust which tends to be built on very long relationships. We've known these people. We've seen how they've responded in various situations over many years or decades. And that's why I think it's so distressing when we hear about a breach of trust within these close relationships. The woman, for example, who's had a loving relationship for many years with a man, only to discover that he's in fact an undercover police officer with his own wife and children somewhere else. But he's been deliberately placed to spy on that woman and the people she mixes with. A devastating revelation for the woman when the deception eventually comes to light, something which is likely to damage her ability to trust again for a very long time indeed, if ever. And there are categories of professional people and institutions in whom we regularly place our trust. Last week, I trusted a complete stranger to cut open my left eyeball with a scalpel, which is a considerable act of trust when you really think about it. But as he was a consultant with the NHS, I felt confident in my decision to allow him to do this, and rightly so. But again, how shocking it is when we hear about professional people betraying our trust. Many of us will have been horrified when we heard, for example, about the funeral director in Hull who appears to have been dealing dishonestly with the dead people entrusted to his care. He was profiteering from the faith which bereaved families had placed in his integrity. This case has yet to come to trial, I should add. Now, there have, of course, been breaches of trust between human beings since time immemorial. People have cheated on their husbands or wives since marriage started to exist as an institution. There have occasionally, tragically, been the Harold Shipmans of this world. But nowadays, there genuinely does seem to be a kind of wholesale erosion of our ability to trust, perhaps even of the wisdom of trusting too much anymore. A friend of mine received an email from the NHS recently inviting her to take part in some medical research. She very wisely checked with her doctor's surgery before accepting this invitation, which did indeed involve her in clicking on a link and divulging all kinds of very personal information about herself. Now, I'm not sure that I'd have been as vigilant as my friend had I received this email. But of course I should have been, because yes, scammers of all kinds are rife nowadays, and they deliberately play on our instinct to trust the NHS or our bank or whoever. And then there's the absolute minefield of confidence, which is artificial intelligence. How can I trust that an interview with Keir Starmer that I see online is actually true when it's now possible to fake that interview pretty convincingly? And the fakes are becoming more and more convincing every single day. But at least human beings still believe that it is a good thing to be trustworthy and to trust other people unless we have a good reason not to. I very sincerely believe this, which is why another programme I've spotted on telly is making me feel very uneasy indeed. Now, with the Traitors programme, the lies which the traitors tell to their fellow contestants are part of a fiction. Those traitors are playing, in a way, a theatrical role. It is like a murder mystery, and nobody's actually getting murdered. But a fairly new programme on the BBC called The Inner Circle raises this lying to a completely different level. Again, it's a very complicated format, which I won't describe in detail. Suffice to say that at the end of the programme, two contestants face each other and they converse with each other. Each has a pot of money. The amount is secret from the other player, and it's possible for them to share all that money equally between them. But there's a catch. Each player has to vote secretly, either to split the money or to shaft the other player. Please do forgive the crude language. Now, if both players decide to split, they do indeed share the kitty. If they both decide to shaft, all of the money is lost to both of them. But if just one player decides to shaft, they, in effect, steal all the cash for themselves. Now, I've watched the end of this programme just twice, and I've found it absolutely excruciating on both occasions, because on both occasions, two apparently perfectly decent people engaged in conversation, smiling at each other, looking each other openly in the eye, saying, "You can trust me," and then one of them has shafted the other and stolen all the money. Right now, I suspect that this betrayal of trust does still have the power to really shock viewers, as it has really shocked me. But I think I have a fear, and my fear is that this kind of popular television does actually have the power subtly to erode our morality, change our moral compass, so that very gradually, imperceptibly, it becomes acceptable, even quite fun, to betray another person's trust in this way. And if this does happen, it will be tragic. And for me, as a Christian, it will also be a betrayal of what God created human beings to be and to do. God made us to trust one another, because trust is a beautiful thing. Thank you for staying with me during this reflection, and I wish you every blessing for the rest of the day.